There is a street in the center of Tel Aviv that you cannot see on Google Maps. Not because it doesn't exist, not because it was demolished. It is a real street in the heart of one of the most mapped, photographed, and surveilled cities on Earth. And yet both Google Maps and Yandex Maps, the Russian mapping service, independently chose to blur the satellite imagery, remove street view access, and erase location metadata for an entire block. The street is called Leonardo da Vinci Street. And what lies at its intersection, hidden in plain sight behind two luxury 18-story apartment towers known as the Da Vinci Complex, is considered the most classified piece of real estate in the state of Israel. Beneath those towers, according to documented research construction records obtained through American government archives and investigative reporting published by multiple media outlets, lies Site 41. A 6,000 square meter underground intelligence center, electromagnetically shielded, built with American funding and engineering, and reinforced enough to maintain communications even if everything above ground stops functioning. It was designed to survive electronic warfare. It was designed to survive the destruction of surface infrastructure. It was designed so the people inside could continue directing a war even after the world above them goes dark. Directly adjacent to this site, beneath the Israeli Ministry of Defense complex known as the Kirya, the structure often described as Israel's equivalent of the Pentagon, lies another installation called the Fortress of Zion. The New York Times was granted controlled access and described it as a command nerve center where around 70 personnel sat across multiple levels facing wall-sized screens tracking real-time strikes. During active conflict, the Alma Research Center reported that thousands of soldiers may be working there continuously. The Fortress of Zion is a newer and deeper extension of an older command post the Israeli military simply called the Pit. Together they form a buried command architecture Israel has spent decades building, expanding, and hiding from public view. On March 11th, the 12th day of the war, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced that it had struck this complex. Not the building above ground, not the perimeter, but the underground command infrastructure beneath the Kirya in central Tel Aviv. The same area that was targeted during the 12-day war of June 2025 when an Iranian ballistic missile hit the Da Vinci complex. The Jerusalem Post later reported that the impact landed, in their words, a stone's throw from the office of Benjamin Netanyahu. After that strike, Israeli authorities sealed the sector, cameras were blocked. No official comment was issued. Weeks later, renovations began at the Prime Minister's office. To this day, satellite imagery over that part of Tel Aviv remains censored. An investigation by France 24 concluded that Israeli media coverage of the June 2025 Da Vinci strike was likely deliberately delayed. One major Israeli outlet waited 2 full weeks before publishing anything about the impact, even though photographs were already circulating online. Now Iran claims it has struck the same location again, and Israel has done exactly the same thing it did last time. The streets were sealed, cameras blocked, no comment. Before deciding what to think about this claim, whether it is propaganda, whether the target was hit, whether it matters, 2 things must be understood. First, what this underground architecture actually is and what it would mean to strike it. Second, the weapon Iran used to try. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has publicly named its targets throughout the war. They listed 27 American bases. They listed Ben Gurion Airport. They claimed destruction of 7 American and Israeli radar systems. And they identified the Kirya, Israel's military headquarters, as a priority target from the very first day. Their initial war statement explicitly named Tel Nof Air Base, the Kirya complex itself. A major defense industrial complex in Tel Aviv, Iran, targeted this same complex once before. The evidence of what happened was sealed. Now it is targeting it again, in a war where Iran has already demonstrated the ability to penetrate Israel's multi-layered air defense network. Missiles can reach central Tel Aviv. Interception calculations do not always work. And the question now being asked inside defense ministries around the world, a question answered only through sealed streets and blurred satellite maps, is this: was this time different? Did something underground get hit? Is the nerve center Israel spent decades burying still intact? And if the answer changes, does it change the trajectory of a war that by day 12 has already overturned many of the assumptions the United States and Israel brought into it? The weapon Iran used. The missile reportedly used is designated by Iran as Qassem Soleimani-4. It first appeared in the Iranian arsenal in May 2023. Its range is roughly 2,000 kilometers, placing every major Israeli city within reach from deep inside Iran. Its standard warhead weighs about 1,500 kilograms, roughly the destructive force of some of the largest conventional bombs dropped during World War II. But the submunition configuration changes everything. At about 7 kilometers altitude, the warhead opens. It releases roughly 20 individual submunitions, each carrying around 5 kilograms of explosives. They disperse across a radius of 500 meters or more over an urban area. Iran confirmed using this weapon during what it called the 19th wave of Operation True Promise. Targets listed included central Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport, the 27th Israeli Air Force Base. Israeli firefighters later responded to 2 confirmed impact zones where scattered submunitions had been found. One first responder described treating a civilian with severe shrapnel wounds, a pattern typical of cluster dispersal weapons. Why this matters for underground targets. A conventional warhead striking above an underground command center must penetrate directly into the ground. Against reinforced concrete designed for electronic warfare resilience, a surface explosion at the wrong angle does little below. But a submunition warhead works differently. It does not try to penetrate. It saturates the surface above the facility with dozens of explosions. It can destroy ventilation shafts supplying air underground, damage communication antennas and relay stations, collapse entry points, turn the surface footprint of the facility into what military planners call an access denial zone, a place where no one can survive above ground and no one below ground can safely emerge. If that is what happened at the Kirya on day 12 of the war, Israeli authorities are not saying. What they are doing is exactly what they did in June 2025. Seal the streets, block the cameras, say nothing. Meanwhile, Israel itself confirmed a mirror event. On March 6th, roughly 50 Israeli Air Force fighter jets dropped around 100 munitions on an underground bunker beneath a leadership complex in Tehran. The Israel Defense Forces released video footage and announced the complete destruction of the installation. According to the Alma Research Center, Israeli intelligence units Unit 8200 and Unit 9900 had spent years mapping every corridor before the strike. Israel published evidence. Iran has not provided proof for its claim about the Kirya. But in a war where both governments tightly control information, absence of proof does not necessarily mean absence of an event. The larger war. Since February 28th, Iran has launched over 500 ballistic and cruise missiles, more than 2,000 drone operations. About 40% targeted Israel. 60% targeted American positions across the Gulf region. Early waves used large saturation attacks. Later waves shifted towards smaller, more precise strikes using heavier weapons. This change, from mass attacks to precision targeting, is what makes the claim about the Kirya plausible enough for analysts to take seriously. The human cost verified reporting shows that in early March, at least 19 Israelis were hospitalized, 10 civilians were killed, 4 were critically injured. One strike in Beit Shemesh collapsed a civilian bomb shelter 2 stories underground, killing 9 people. For defense planners, that moment established something new. Iranian missiles can penetrate civil shelter infrastructure deeper than previously expected. The silent war underground. Both sides are now fighting on 2 levels. The visible war above ground, and the invisible war below it, and where command centers, missile facilities, and leadership bunkers exist. Both sides know where the other's underground infrastructure is. Both sides are striking it, and both sides release information selectively, because in this war, information itself is a weapon. Iran needs its claim about the Kirya to sound believable. It needs Israelis and the world to believe that no underground layer is safe. Israel needs the opposite. It needs its buried command structure to appear untouched, because the moment the military command layer appears compromised, deterrence begins to crack. Allies recalibrate, enemies accelerate. That is why the streets are sealed. That is why there is no comment. That is why the satellite maps are still blurred, and why right now the most valuable real estate on Earth may be the underground command centers of 2 nations at war, and no government will tell you whether they are still intact. The sealed streets speak instead.